Here in Piscataway, where the Scarlet Knights are coming off a 4-win season, hoping to improve on that this year, building towards an opener, a Sunday opener conference game against the Northwestern Wildcats. And with that, we welcome you in. Dave Revson, Jerry DiNardo, and Howard Griffith had a chance to see Rutgers go through practice this morning. 4th year for Greg Schiano as he tries to rebuild this program and restore some of the glory from his first tenure here. Where have you seen progress from last season?
Well, we've seen progress in the depth. Now, it's early in camp, so in the past years, I think we were here a little bit later. So there's certainly a deep team. Defense is strong, which is, what we expected. I think Kirk Ciarrocaa, the offensive coordinator, is really the big story. The change in offenses. Gavin Wimsatt's got to be the quarterback. And so, to me, defense is the strength. The offense has to come along.
I think one of the things that's always been consistent since he's come back, right, is taking care of the little things. This is a developmental program, so you need to be able to make each and every play. So you can't afford to be having mistakes. Guys have to be on top of their game as they go through practice. Now, there's some times when some guys aren't quite getting that done and it has to be reinforced, meaning you need to do it again. So you see some of that, but that's what I noticed. Really, one of the first things that jumped out is making sure that you're paying attention to detail each and every time you walk out onto the field.
I'd say this too, Howard. I mean, as position coaches in group work, they're really an outstanding staff. Yeah. And you and I always watch the offensive line and the defensive line, and sometimes one offensive line coach is coaching 20 guys, and then there's other programs like Rutgers that splits it up too and uses a grad assistant. And so they do a lot of that. There's a lot of really detailed individual attention during individual work.
And Pat Flaherty coming back to coach that offensive line. We'll talk a little bit about that as we progress through the show. But I want to build on something that you were talking about, Howard, and I'm going to ask Greg Schiano about this because it stood out to me too. You were talking about the little details, right? I mean, how many times do you hear the ball is the program here, right? Like over and over. And again, it is reinforcing that. There was a moment where they were switching fields, and for people who don't watch practices much, right, you're often working on multiple fields, and part of it often involves players going from one spot to another. Could be 150 yards away from where they were, and the expectation is that you hustle, that you get there on time. There was a moment today where that didn't happen, and they literally brought everyone back to where they were standing and switched fields again. What's the message that sends?
Well, I think one is twofold here. I think because the way they switch fields is the details. You need to hustle to your next assignment or to the next period that you want to work in, but it's also a way to get conditioning in through practice. So you only have so much time to spend with the young people on the field, but that's just another way to be able to get them that extra reps that they need as far as conditioning is concerned, because a lot of teams, particularly if it's a warm day, don't like to necessarily at the end of practice want to start running sprints. So you should be able to get all that extra work in between periods, and that's what the young people have to be able to be conscious of.
Right, and this is one of the programs that the coach works off the loudspeaker, right? I mean, that's where PJ got it, right? Yeah. He worked for Greg Schiano. Greg Schiano coaches off the loudspeaker, and that's exactly what they say, Howard, right? When they blow the horn, they say, this is your conditioning, this is your conditioning, because nowadays athletes are here year-round. I mean, there's no such thing as getting a team in shape. They're already in shape, but you want to condition them. So they used your example, Reverend, as an example of conditioning. I think the other thing that we have to think about is the matchup opponents, and I'd start with the first game, right? I mean, them and Northwestern, we've seen both the teams practice now. It's a matchup game, for both teams. And when you're in this program like Greg Schiano is, you have to win the matchup games to continue to make progress. That's the only way to prove progress is when you have equal talent, you win the game.
And the schedule is very challenging this year in terms of the crossover games because the other two, aside from Northwestern, are Wisconsin and Iowa on the road. You obviously know how good the East is, so it kind of reinforces the notion, Jerry, that, hey, that's one you got to get right off the bat against Northwestern, a team that's had a lot of turmoil.
Those could be considered Super Bowls?
Super Bowls, yes. There is at least one person that I know.
This is the first time we've talked Super Bowls.
Who would consider
I skipped it last year.
Rutgers season opener to be a Super Bowl. I'm glad you brought it back, and I know America is
you're welcome.
As well.
You're welcome.
Top storylines for the Scarlet Knights in year 4 of Greg Schiano's return. Returning production, a big plus, 70% back from a season ago. That is the third highest in the Big Ten. Remember, this is a team that started 4-3 last year before dropping its final 5. The biggest issues were on the offensive side. Brought in Kirk Ciarrocaa in hopes of changing that. He was Schiano's OC for part of his first stint at Rutgers, inherits a group that has scored 20 or fewer points in 17 of its last 22 games. The defense was solid early last year before running out of gas late. Still finished in the top 40 in the nation in terms of yards allowed, top 30 in pass efficiency defense. And joined now by the head coach of the Scarlet Knights, Greg Schiano. You're still fairly early on in practice here, Coach, but where do you feel like you've made the most progress?
Well, I think we've steadily grown on defense at all three levels, which we need to continue to do that. That's a strength of our program. Replacing our punter was a big thing, and I think we're good there. And then offensively, I think Gavin's made some real strides at the quarterback position, and that we needed. The offensive line's getting better. Just got to keep getting better. I think we have some depth at running back. So those are really, I'm optimistic about the way that they're working, and I'm optimistic about, you see flashes. The way I judge it is, okay, where do we have Big Ten players? Like if I'm at another Big Ten school, I would consider trading my guy for your guy. We're starting to have more and more of those, and that's critical.
You were mentioning kind of starting to see the incremental progress. And one thing that really struck me today, and I'm interested in getting a comment on it was a really small moment. But you guys were switching fields in the middle of a drill, and you were unhappy with how that switch went in terms of the hustle and guys getting to where they needed to be. And you called everyone back, and you had them do it again. What does a moment like that say to your players?
Well, I think they've known it from when we came back, is the standard, and that's never going to change. And when you go below the standard, we're going to do it again. We're going to get it right. And eventually, hopefully, those moments are very few and far between. And I can tell you, between year one and now, they're night and day.
You talked a little bit about needing to get better on offense, and you made some moves coaching-wise, right? You brought in Kirk Ciarrocaa, brought in Pat Flaherty. These are guys you're really familiar with. How does that familiarity accelerate the process of getting to where you want to be?
Well, you're right. I'm very familiar with them, and Kirk is an outstanding leader as well as an offensive coordinator and a quarterback coach. So it's critical. We need to make progress, and we need to do it in a pretty quick manner here. And I think Kirk has the ability to teach not only the quarterback position, but every position in the room. Now you get a guy like Flats, who's an established coach, right? NFL coach for over 20 years. I know him since 1989. So, here's a guy that is one of the best in the business, and now he's working with this line that we got to get put together. Dave Brock comes with us. Dave's been several places, National Football League coach. You have some experienced coaches that have been there, done that. Mix them in with some younger guys and some support staff. And I think it's been a real good chemistry, really on both sides of the ball. Defensively, we were able to keep our staff intact, and I think that's been huge too. They got a great chemistry over there.
When you analyzed where you wanted to go offensively, knowing that you had fallen short of that, how much of it was we need to change scheme, we need to do things differently, and how much of it was just this is a coaching issue but not an X and O issue? Can you separate those two out?
Well, I definitely bet on people. That's how I've done it my whole career. I know Kirk, it wasn't easy getting him, right? We had to work and fight to do it, but I just said, when I decided I was making a change, I said, who's the number one guy I want to get? And it was Kirk Ciarrocaa. He's the first guy I called. Now, I wish I could tell you it happened immediately, but it didn't. That's okay. And eventually we were able to work it out. Very grateful to our administration for stepping up like they did and allowing me to hire the staff that I think is going to lead us to where we want to go.
How have you seen Gavin Wimsatt grow under his tutelage?
A lot. That's one of the things I'm optimistic about. And it's both technical, right? He's become more accurate as a passer, and it's a football understanding, running the offense, being the quarterback, not being the thrower, not being the runner, but being the quarterback. I think he and Kirk have a great chemistry. I think Kirk has a great chemistry with the whole room, but Gavin being the starter, I think, is critical, and he's made some really impressive throws so far, but that's kind of like the back end of it. Mm-hmm. The way he's running the offense is what's got me excited.
You mentioned earlier the backbone of this program being the defense, and it was a pretty good defense for the first half of last year and then just kind of wore down a little bit. we talked about this a little at Big Ten Media Days, but I'm interested if you could elaborate on kind of what you saw early on in the year that you think you can get to translate longer term here. Well,
I think we have essentially the same defensive line returning, plus some really good addition. I think that the linebackers, we have the same guys that played all this, plus two really good players, Muhammad Toure, who was injured last year, and Moses Walker, who was injured. So now we have some depth. And then in the secondary, it's predominantly the same guys that played last year. And we added some guys, through the portal. So I love the depth we have. And I think there's guys there that, I would take them on my team if I were at another school. The more you have of those, that's when you start to win games.
You talk about taking players from other schools. This is a reality, right? That with the portal, it seems like you reinforce some areas where you needed reinforcement. Wide receiver would kind of be the most obvious one that jumps to mind just kind of from watching today. What's the philosophy for you of kind of how much do you want to be a portal program? How much do you want to be a high school program?
Yeah, I still think we have a great location for high school recruiting. So that to me is the backbone of our program. We'll use the portal to fill in, as you said, places where maybe we're just not quite where we want to be. So kind of to fill a gap. At receiver, we have some good, really good young receivers. Will they be ready to play by the third? Maybe a few plays, but I don't think they can carry the load. We went out and got Jaquay Jackson, who's really impressed. Nassim Brantley, who's really impressed. Right? So those guys give us a chance. Chris Long, who was on our team, Chris is a tremendous athlete. We got to keep him healthy. He's had some issues getting bumped. Keep him healthy, he'll be a Big Ten receiver. Expansion's been a huge topic of conversation here over the last couple of weeks. How does all of this movement, in your mind, of the Big Ten impact Rutgers, and whether it's in recruiting or whether it's in visibility or anything at all, or even just the logistics of being an East Coast school that has to get to the West? Like, what are the things that you think about when you think about expansion? I don't spend a lot of time thinking about it first, but I do say this. Anything that's good for the Big Ten is good for Rutgers, because we're part of the best football conference in the country. And if this makes us stronger, great. We have a job to do here at Rutgers, and that's what I focus on. I think that our conference is becoming really, really special. It always has been, but now in this day and age where people are moving around and people are trying to establish strongholds, I think we have that. That job starts with the opener against Northwestern. You guys get really good exposure, right? A national TV game on Sunday where there aren't going to be a whole lot of other games going on. What does that game and getting off to a good start mean for you guys? Well, it means a lot. We're working so hard for this whole off season, this whole summer, now training camp. I think these guys are going to be rip-roaring ready to play. I know Northwestern is. You know the culture that's in that program. They're tough. They're going to come. They're going to show up ready to play. Should be a great game. And as you said, the only game in town on a Sunday at noon. Greg Schiano, always appreciate your time. Thanks a lot, Coach. Thank you. Rutgers bringing back 6 starters on offense, including 3 across that offensive line. We've already mentioned Wimsatt. Jack of all trades, Johnny Langan is back, as is last year's top rusher, Kyle Manungai. You'll notice no returnees at receiver dipped into the portal to try to reinforce that group. Guys, no great secret. The offense is the biggest issue here in this program, trying to figure out a way to get it on target and back on track. A couple of years ago it wasn't so bad, but then these last 2 seasons have really been a struggle. So you enter Kirk Ciarrocaa. What did you see today as you observe that group?
Well, they're a big RPO team, which is what Kirk does on offense. I think the pass game is a challenge. They were 44%. Wimsatt was a 44% completion guy last year. It looks like he's improved in that. I think they've got to find a way to be a little bit more balanced. Time of possession, they were 11th last year. They have a good defense, but if they can possess the ball more than the 11th ranked team in the conference, I think it helps their defense, and that's complementary football for them. I think this is a program you win with defense and you complement with the offense until the offense gets going.
Yeah, offensively, you can't turn the football over. I've had a former coach say, it's an offense, you're going to kick. You're either going to punt, get an extra point, or kick a field goal. And that's kind of where you see this offense. But it has room to grow. And I think that's part of it. But they have to be able to take care of the football. 3-and-outs aren't going to work. But you talk about the RPO game. I think that's going to be obviously a big part of it. When you look at the quarterback and the talent that he has, he can be a huge weapon, particularly in the run game.
You think about a year ago, guys, they were 4-2 when they scored 16 or more points. So the message there is the bar isn't that high because of the point you guys were making, that the defense is really good. You just need to figure out a way to, hey, can you get into the 20s? And that becomes the challenge. And they made some moves here. I mean, Jaquay Jackson's going to really help a wide receiver, right? Went into the portal. It feels like they got better there. The offensive line's been a problem here for several years. How did you evaluate that group and the impact that Pat Flaherty's made?
Well, I think they're going to be better. They've gotten better. Physically, they look better. But I think it's going to come down to being physical at the point of attack as an offensive line. You've got to be able to control the line of scrimmage. And what running the RPOs takes a little bit of the pressure off the offensive line to be able to do that. So they're not forced to hold the blocks as long. But I do believe this is a group that can get the job done. You go back to the running back group to me as well. This is a group, hey, put your foot in the ground and get north and south. Now, they may look a little different, right, because they want to get some wide zones that they like to run, get to the perimeter. But when it's time to go north and south, you have to be able to put your foot in the ground and get those valuable yards and not turn the football over.
Yeah, when you look at the individual work, which I think all three of us were very impressed with, that offensive line is going to develop. Plus their numbers, they were in the 20s. I mean, they've got a lot of players in the offensive line. But they've got to be able to run the ball. I mean, they've got to eat up some clock. They've got to help their defense, and they've got to be physical up front. And they're going to have to run some options. RPO is not necessarily a really downhill game. RPO is a mesh, and you're reading the second level defender. That's not really a physical play. The other options within their offense are more physical plays. And remember, the RPO stops the clock if obviously it's in a complete pass. So if I'm trying to protect my defense, trying to win a game like you kind of described, Trevor, I think I'm running more options than I am RPO options.
And there's some physical players here. I mean, Holland Pierce is an unbelievable story, right? A guy who came here at 400 pounds as a walk-on, who's turned into a legitimate Big Ten left tackle, and a guy you can get behind. I continue to love Johnny Langan. He just gives you something. He gives you that kind of toughness that you're looking for, the physicality. So there are some options there. The running back group can be a very physical group. It's not that they don't have the personnel to have that identity.
And we're in the first day of full pads. So this team's going to get tougher. It's going to get more downhill. You don't want to go out the first day. Like, there was no inside drill. There was no 9-on-7 drill. That was by design. It's the first day in pads. How much do you want to bang them? And so they had a couple guys get nicked up a little bit. And so you got to ease into this physical part of the camp.
And again, so much of it revolves around how much better does Gavin Wimsatt get at quarterback. All of these question marks around this group. But it's clear that they have a direction that they want to go in. And making those changes on the coaching staff are an indication of that. And now, can you get there? Gavin Wimsatt came to Rutgers with a ton of hype. A 4-star prospect out of high school who, remember, left during his senior season to come enroll, meaning this is his 3rd year on campus. The expectation was that this would be a battle in camp, but Schiano ended the suspense at Media Day, naming Wimsatt as his starter. Here's the QB with Jerry.
Gavin, what is the best thing about being the starting quarterback at Rutgers?
I would say the best thing about being the starting quarterback here at Rutgers is just having my guys and the other leaders around me, behind me, and knowing they have the confidence behind me to lead the team. So,
what kind of leader are you?
I would say I'm more of a vocal leader now. I used to say that I was more of a just lead by example, but this offseason, me and some of the older guys on the team, big part was me becoming more vocal and being able to speak to the guys. So I would say I'm more of a vocal leader now.
What do you want to get done during camp technically in your game?
Just being more consistent, instead of being on the roller coaster, having the really high highs but maybe the low lows. Just being consistent, where we're performing at a great level and we're being consistent and making smart decisions.
If Coach Ciarrocaa said to you, Gavin, call all first downs this game, and you decided to call a run, what would it be? You don't have to use your terminology. You can you can tell us what it looks like.
I'm gonna call a zone read. Read. Yeah.
All right. Throw the ball at 1st and 10.
We're gonna go play action, but I want the deep shot.
You want the deep shot?
I want the deep shot. Yeah.
Tell us about Coach Ciarrocaa. What's he like?
Coach Ciarrocaa is great. He came in. he's just been a really positive influence for our offense, our whole offense, especially the quarterback room. Just helping all the quarterbacks in our room, especially me, being just more decisive and more confident in our decisions, and making the smart decisions, and telling us when to kill the play, and when we have it, when we have the big play. So
you look like you've really gotten better at the deep ball, mostly. That's what it looked like today in practice. How about some of the RPOs? How do you feel running those?
I feel great, especially with Coach Ciarrocaa and him having so much experience in running the RPOs. Having him behind it, it really puts confidence in us and how to read them, and know when we're throwing them. So I feel great about throwing the RPOs.
Tell us about some of the receivers that you're throwing to.
Our receiver room is really great right now. Those guys have been very good in the offseason and just being intentional every day and getting better. The improvement I've seen in those guys is amazing. So it's great.
Running backs?
We have a great running back room, especially in Kyle Benungai, Sam Brown, AY. We got some young guys in there too, Benji. So I'm really excited, and Shorty, Al Shadi. So I'm really excited for our running back room to see what they do.
In this offense, the quarterback has to run the ball a little bit. I mean, how many times a game do you think that might turn into once you start the season?
It depends. It depends, I say, on the game plan, what Coach Ciarrocaa's plans are. But, if we have to run it, we will. I'm confident in running, so, I have no problem with that.
All right. Well, appreciate your time and really enjoyed watching you practice.
Thank you. Thank you for coming out.
You bet.
They will keep on chopping this year, and they will do it with a few guys who earned Big Ten postseason honors last year, all of them on the defensive side. Aaron Lewis delivered 31 quarterback hits last year. That was 13 more than any other player in the league. Max Melton and Deion Jennings both named honorable mention all-conference.
Deion, first day in practice, how'd you feel?
Felt great. The guys that came out with a lot of energy, we just went out there and flew around, and, I like the way we seen what I seen from the guys, so it was really good.
What other positions did you play growing up in high school?
I played cornerback, safety. I was really a hybrid type of guy, in high school, and, just transitioning into college, it was easy for me.
Were you
a linebacker?
Did you play on the offensive side at all?
Oh, yeah. I played receiver as well,
okay.
So, yeah.
You can kind of notice, when I watch your game, you really have great eye discipline. And you don't, I'd say, get too excited. You kind of let the play come to you.
Yeah.
How did you learn to develop that type of patience?
Well, just reps and, just being patient. Trusting my keys, trusting what my coaches tell me to do, and, just going out there and balling out. So.
Athletic group at the linebacker position. Talk to me a little bit about that group.
Tyreem, he's a long, rangy type of guy, could really get in the passing lanes, he really does a great job with that. Just having Moses, and Mo just being versatile players, I think that's really going to help our group, throughout the season. So, it's going to be good.
How do you guys build on some of the things you were able to do last year? Really played well, really, particularly earlier in the season, and then kind of faded late. How do you correct that part of the game?
Well, just fine-tuning everything, making sure that, everybody's communicating every play, and, we'll get what we want in the end. So
big guys up front try to keep those linemen and stuff off of you. Talk to me a little bit about that group as well.
Just making sure that they're all keyed in and all tuned in, and also just for me personally, just letting them know that, I appreciate what they do, and, just, giving them a pat on the back, or, just telling them, hey, it's time to go. So, that's what I do to, hold those guys to that standard.
The back end, those guys really challenged a lot of passes today in practice.
Yeah.
Is that one of the things that they've been working on as well?
Yep. The DBs, just, getting everybody's support, just helping everybody out, just telling them, keeping them up, keeping them positive, that's really, what I've been trying to do as a leader. So, that's one of my roles in the team.
What are some of the things you've been working on personally, individually, to take to, I can't even say take your game to the next level because it's already there,
there, but to continue to refine what it is that you do.
Just diving deeper in the film study, seeing offenses, seeing, receiver splits, where the running back's lined out wide or is he tight to the quarterback, things like that, little details, to try to just elevate my game.
Offense has changed a little bit. What have you seen from those guys up front?
They're playing more physical, they've really dove into, what Coach Ciarrocaa believes in, and it's great to see, and it's working out really well for them.
Give me a couple of keys to what's going to make this defense and this team ultimately successful the way you want it to be.
Consistency, communication, and just being together all the time. Through the good, the bad. Everybody staying through, and that's what's really going to get us over that hump.
Tell me what CHOP means.
CHOP, mental, physical toughness, and perseverance. Yep, Coach Schiano, preaches it all the time, and it's true. You have to have those things in order to go out and win games in the Big Ten Conference.
Love your game, man. Keep playing at a high level that you are. Good luck this season. Stay healthy.
Thank you.
Welcome back to Piscataway. Rutgers has to figure out a way to get better offensively. Averaged just 13 points per game against FBS teams last year. That was 128th in the nation. Averaged the fewest passing yards of any power conference team. Enter Kirk Ciarrocaa, or more accurately, re-enter Kirk Ciarrocaa. Greg Schiano's former offensive coordinator back in the fold, trying to turn around the offense. A challenge he talked about with Jerry.
Coach, you've moved around the last couple of years. What made this Rutgers job so attractive to you?
Yeah, well, I'm from the East Coast originally. Chance to get back a little closer to my family. My friendship with Greg, and an opportunity to work with him and help him turn this program around here. To do something like that here, it's exciting to me. I love my time in Minnesota, but I just felt like this was the right situation for me right now.
What does Gavin have to do in preseason camp to really be ready for the season?
I love what he's doing right now. He's getting better every day. He just keeps chopping, and right now, it's like a roller coaster, right? But it's getting higher, and the drops are shorter, right? And we just have to keep doing that. We're looking for consistency. I think in every great quarterback, he's consistent. He has enough talent. He'll make the great plays. We just have to be consistent.
Is there a lot of difference between what he was doing before you came here, or is there some carryover?
I'm sure there's some carryover, but to be honest with you, Coach, I didn't even I wanted to have a really blank slate with all the kids, and I didn't really study their film or look at it. I still haven't looked at one game from last year of them.
I think everybody wants to go into the season with more than one quarterback. Tell us about the quarterbacks behind Gavin.
I think Evan Simon's done a really good job. He's played in the Big Ten games before, played well, so I'm excited about his development. And then we have a young true freshman and a Johnny Shepard who's got all the intangibles, and he's learning.
Goals for the offense coming out of camp?
It's really simple. We want to be consistent. We want to be consistent, take care of the ball. We want our execution to be consistent, and we want to be violent.
The system's new to everybody, but how about some of the younger people that we may see that we don't know much about?
Yeah, I think we've got some. I think their last class they brought in is really good. We've got some really talented young skill guys that I think can help us a little bit. The Ian Strongs of the world, the Dylan Braithwaites of the world. They're guys that can help us. Fuse can help us, I think, down the road. I'm probably missing somebody, but we've got a really young group of developmental wide receivers right now that I'm really high on.
Coach Schiano talks about leadership a lot. Who are your offensive leaders?
That's a great question. I would say Johnny Langan,
right.
Is stepping forward. Curtis Dunlap, has done a great job. He was with me at Minnesota when he was a young buck. So he certainly understands the system and he understands me. So he's a great guy to help make sure the guys understand where I'm coming from for me. Kyle Monunga has done a great job for us. We've got Coach's done a great job with the culture here. And usually when you go somewhere, it's really difficult the first year. You're trying to build that trust and get them to understand what you're trying to do. These guys, their work ethic is unbelievable. Their commitment level to being the best player they can be. I couldn't be happier with their attitude and stuff. And that's a tribute to Coach and what he's done. As you know, Coach, when you take over a program that hasn't been very successful, those first couple of years are really, really hard. Sure. And he's really stayed the course, and I feel like we're at a point in the program now where we can make some real strides.
Always appreciate your time and always enjoy watching your work, Coach. Thank you.
Thank you, Coach.
Defense was the calling card for Rutgers last year, particularly early. Gave up just 21 points per game over their first 7 outings before fading a bit down the stretch. Cut down significantly on the big plays as well. Tied for the Big Ten lead with just 2 of 50 yards or longer after giving up a league-worst 12 the year before. Gosh, the numbers show that this was at times a very good defense a year ago and certainly respectable for most of the year. It did feel like they were on the field a lot and kind of wore down as the season went on and as the level of opposition improved in the back half of that schedule. But there's a lot to be optimistic about, and it feels like this is the identity of the program. So what did you see as you watched them today, Howard?
You see a deep group, particularly at the linebacker group. From my perspective, you look at a group that really has a lot of athletic guys that can do a lot of different things, whether that's rushing the passer, dropping into coverage, physical at the point of attack. So I like where they are right now on the defensive side. They have a lot of depth on that side. Part of the issue, as you just talked about, Dave, is they spent too much time on the field. They have to be able to get some of those 3 and outs, and they need the offense to be able to help them as well.
Right. The offense has to help. The defense is the strength of the team. 8 starters back. The offense can't turn it over, and the offense has to possess the ball. So we're talking about the defense, but we're talking about in this program right now, the offense has to help the defense continue to be the strength, and it simply comes down to possess the ball and don't turn it over. They're deep. They're very well coached. They're flying around. They look like they had great morale. They certainly won the day. I mean, they won today in almost every single drill. They had great enthusiasm. They were an impressive group. But the same thing can't happen the second half of the season where the offense puts them in bad position.
It's interesting, too. It feels like they've used the portal strategically here on defense. They'll get a lot of help up front. Isaiah Eiton's going to be a good player for them, an SEC transfer. They got a couple guys in the secondary coming from the MAC, and those don't feel like guys they're going to lean on heavily, but they'll be rotational players, and that's probably what you want, right? I mean, I think that's an indication of, and again, I'm not trying to paint with a broad brush and say no MAC players can play in the Big Ten because that's far from true.
Right.
We all know that. There are a lot of guys who would excel in this league, but if you're getting to that point where you're bringing in players as rotational players, as key pieces, but not necessarily as guys you're leaning on, that feels like progress to me.
Right, and it certainly feels like the place to do that is the portal. And yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons that the portal is such a great thing. Here's someone who played in the MAC. They have an opportunity to play in the Big Ten, and the portal gives them that chance. And so they're using the portal for their depth, like I think some other people are as well.
Well, I think you need to continue to develop depth. But one of the things that's happening, and we're seeing players come from lower levels to top level programs, and one of the reasons I think coaches are doing it, because I've heard them say it, there's an appreciation. There's oh yeah, this is what I've got. So they're giving everything that they have to the program because they've gained so much by making the transfer. So you're seeing a lot of that as well, but I think it's about depth at this program. That's what they have to do. They're getting a few guys that were injured last year. They're getting them back. That's going to help that depth, and that's the kind of depth that they're going to need as they continue to get into the meat of the Big Ten program. Because it's so physical, because of the way they want to play, guys are going to get nicked up, so they're going to need guys to be able to fill in.
Yeah, I think in a general rule, a portal guy is a pretty highly motivated player,
Absolutely.
Right? Because otherwise they wouldn't be being recruited by somebody above them. So I think they do come with a lot of energy, a lot to prove, and a lot of motivation.
Can those guys help you? Can you stay healthy, too? I mean, Mohamed Touré would have made a huge difference on the field last year. Right. All you have to do is watch him for one day, and you say, well, that was a big loss. Right. Healthy now. Can they stay healthy? That'll be a big part of it here for Rutgers this year. Defensive coordinator Joe Harasymiak did an outstanding job in his first year at the helm of the Scarlet Knights D last year after coming over from Minnesota. The New Jersey native has already been a head coach in his career, spending 3 seasons at Maine.
Coach, this defense made some great strides last year. Well, how can you build on that this year?
Yeah, I think we had a lot of returning guys coming back, and the one thing that we've talked about is sustainability. I think we were in a lot of games early, played hard, and then I think second half wise we kind of melted a little bit with some of the things we saw. So we've had a great offseason, great camp so far, and I think we just got to stick to what we believe in. And violence we talk about all the time is non-negotiable. It starts with that, and then certainly taking the ball away because the ball's the program. So if we can stick to that and sustain that throughout the game, I think we'll give ourselves a better shot in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, the depth is back. Some guys that you had injured last year are back for you. Starting out with that defensive line, who are some of the guys that you can rely on to be able to be violent at the point of attack?
Yeah, I think it starts with 71. Aaron Lewis, I think he kind of makes that group go, especially with just how he plays is what I identify with how everybody should play. And then obviously his bookend there with Wes Bailey, who really came on last year. As a first-time starter, really doing it for the first time. And certainly inside, we got a number of guys inside that we feel really good about that we're going to rotate. Mine Ahanatus, Isaiah Eitens, Troy Rainey's. So those guys are doing really, really well in there. And I think if we can keep that inside and keep the 2 bookends being able to rush the passer, it'll leave us fresh later in the game so we can sustain what we need to do.
Where's that balance of being able to have that front line, those starters that are out there, versus the rotation? How do you find that balance? Does that change each and every year based on personnel?
Yeah, I think it does. I think the one thing that we kind of focus on, and Coach Watson, our defensive line coach, along with his assistants, do a great job. You also have a feel for the game. What are we seeing? Our guys are sometimes better at seeing certain things and what the scheme is. But ultimately, I think keeping them fresh early and rotating them in so that we have them available for that second half push. You don't want to give anything up first half wise and kind of be unbalanced there. But if we can all make the available play, that'll allow us to kind of have a rotation going that I think will serve us better, late in the game.
Really an athletic group at linebacker that I think a lot of versatile players that you can have do a lot of different things, whether that's dropping into coverage, rushing the passer. They were really getting after it today.
Yeah, that group, those 2 starters are back, which makes us feel really good. Tyreen Powell and Deion Jennings. You got Muhammad Toure, who last year missed all last year, coming off that injury. And, he led the team before I got here in sacks for 2 years. So he's going to be our little hybrid piece that kind of plays a little bit of everywhere. But those 2 guys set the tone. The development of Tyreen Powell has gone really, really high. Deion Jennings you could make an argument besides 71, he was our best football player on defense last year. Just his feel for the game, how he sees the run, and he's just so savvy. And with those 2 guys growing, it's also elevated the room. And now our depth, again, is just growing. And anytime you have depth, you're going to need it in this league.
Powell made an unbelievable play on the interception, dropping into coverage underneath, and it was able to finish.
Yep.
So you need those type of plays this year to support the offense.
We do it. There's 100%. And the greatest part about that is he was not making that play. He was close, but that's the play that was escaping him last year. And I think just that extra year, the offseason, that group, Coach Heatherman, how he coaches that group has got to sustain because we'll only be as good as our front 7. That's how it always is. I joke with people all the time, it's not the little 10, it's the big 10. So we got to stop the run, we got to eliminate big plays, and we got to create takeaways.
In that secondary, another veteran group that's back there is going to benefit from being in the system for another year.
Yeah, our 2 bookend corners right now, Max Melton, Robert Longerbeam, they're back. Our transfer, Eric Rogers, is playing at a really, really high level. We feel like we have a good rotation there. And then, we got the transfer, Michael Dixon, coming over, and then Shaquan Loyal, who played over 200 snaps last year, kind of that nickel position, will slide back and forth. So some guys have to do it for the first time, but I think that veteran experience has kind of helped make that transition a little bit easier for them.
Some of the keys for your defense coming out of training camp that you want to make sure you have checked off, be ready for that first Big Ten game.
Yeah, I think it goes back to making the available play. When I think about great defense, it's 11 guys playing together. So whatever we call, it's not going to matter what the call is. That doesn't matter. It's how we execute it. And wherever that ball goes, wherever that ball finds, that guy's got an opportunity to make the play. And I think last year, especially late, we pressed a little bit, got in some situations where, we just tried to make the play when it wasn't ours to make. get the ball back to the right
People
gap.
being nosy.
Correct.
Okay.
And we run a blitz, get the ball back to the gap. We don't want the water to leak. We always talk about put bricks in the wall, don't let the water leak. And if we can do that, we'll give ourselves a shot.
Well, Coach, thanks a lot for taking time, and good luck this season.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
As you heard, a conference game right out of the gate for Rutgers, opening at home against Northwestern. The non-conference slate includes a home game with Virginia Tech. The other two crossovers are at Wisconsin and Iowa. They host Ohio State, but go to Michigan and Penn State. As we continue here at Rutgers, getting you some final thoughts on what we saw with the Scarlet Knights. And guys, this is a program that has had 8 straight losing seasons, the longest streak in the Big Ten. Now, it is fair to point out they made a bowl game 2 years ago. It was under some unusual circumstances, but still got that opportunity. I think a bowl game is a realistic goal for this team this year. I mean, if you say, hey, what can be something that's attainable, that they can shoot for, that feels like it would be a good year were they to pull it off. So, Howard, what would it take? What needs to happen for Rutgers to be playing in the postseason again?
I think they need the turnover margin. It needs to be positive. Defense needs to be able to take the football away. Offensively, they need to be able to run. And as they talk about throughout practice, they need to strain. It's the little things that's going to get them over the top. They cannot afford to beat themselves. And if they don't do that, it's no reason that they shouldn't be in a bowl game.
Right, so I see 5 matchups, at least 5 matchup opponents on the schedule, right? So you need 6, obviously, to go to a bowl. So you continue to lean on your defense. You possess the ball. You don't turn it over. I mean, those to me are the big keys to get this team to 6. I don't know how much they can throw the ball. I think if they don't have a really good run game, they won't get to 6. I think if they try to be balanced, I'm not sure that's what they can do. So their strengths, their defense. I think you play the defense totally.
I would add penalties as well. They
Sure.
averaged the second most in the Big Ten last year, and it just feels like they understand. I think you said at one point we were on the practice field, Howard, and you said the margin for error is thin. And I think that's true not just of Rutgers, that's true of a lot of programs in the Big Ten who want to get to that kind of mid-tier level. And those are the things. Like everything you guys are talking about feels like kind of the controllables world.
And for me, when you talk about judging the program, because I personally feel when I watch this team practice that they're heading in the right direction. So when I think about wins and losses, it's all about the little things. And those little things are what's important. You mentioned penalties. Can't beat yourself. Turnovers. Can't beat yourself. You have to play as mistake-free as you can. That, to me, is the way you judge a program like Rutgers.
Yeah, and I think opening with Northwestern, that certainly is a matchup opponent, should really energize this team. Today's the first day in pads, but it should energize this team throughout the camp and throughout the first week of the season when they're getting ready for Northwestern. Because honestly, whoever coaches better in that game is going to win. I mean, talent-wise, I think Rutgers has a little bit of an edge, but that's a coaching matchup, and the best coach will win that game.
And then winning those non-conference games, which they've done a great job with. They've won 7 in a row. Can you continue that this year? Virginia Tech is a challenging one. Temple and Wagner as well. So can they figure that out? We have figured out what we're doing next, and that is taking the bus to Maryland, 193 miles from Rutgers to College Park. Traffic can be a variable.
That's all right. I got a lot of food on the bus, Steve.
We do. Thank you to the Choppy.
Yes,
always coming through.
They're coming through for us. They are fabulous. We always enjoy the hospitality here in Piscataway. We're hopping on the bus, Gus. We will see you from College Park. Thanks for watching here as our Rutgers Camp Preview Show comes to an end.